every year to welcome you and to be here and to connect with some new speakers and to welcome back people like David Wilcock. You know, I'm always looking through my files to see when did he first come here. Now, as far as I could see, it was 2008, but I could be wrong. He said 12 years. Okay, so then it was longer than that. It was probably 2005. My records didn't go back quite that far. But you know, when he first came to us, he came to us as the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. That was it. Brilliant, incredible, yes. But since that time, he has continued with his investigations to touch people not only live here, not only through his award-winning books, but on Gaia TV all over the world, 3 shows. And last year he came and he brought with him one of our special guests tonight, Corey Goode. And last year was Corey's debut, right? His very first public debut here at Conscious Life Expo. And I think if you go back, you'll see that there's quite a few speakers that have now become household names that started here at Conscious Life Expo. So give yourself a hand, because you are the ones that are bringing this consciousness out there. And we need to do that more than ever. So give yourself and your neighbor a big hand. Great. All right, well, so David is a triple best-selling author of Source Field, Synchronicity Key, and the Ascension Mysteries. He's a regular on the History Channel, Ancient Aliens, I knew he'd be back. Stretching it out a little bit. Ancient Aliens, the star of 3 Gaia TV shows, Cosmic Disclosure, Wisdom Teachings, and Disclosure. As I said last year, David, at Conscious Life Expo, we did the very first live public interview with intuitive, empathic Corey Goode, who was recruited, trained, and served in the My Labs from age 6 to 16, and then 20 years in various programs. Corey and David are the co-hosts of Gaia TV's Cosmic Disclosure, and tonight they're going to reveal groundbreaking disclosures on 5 different groups that are fighting for humanity's positive future and ascension. Hallelujah! All right, put your hands together and give a warm and wonderful Conscious Life Expo welcome to David Wilcock and Corey Goode.
All right, how's everybody feeling out there? Awesome. Okay, the clothes, I get it, all right? Cuban, tuxedo. But there's a method to this, okay? The thing is, the tuxedo comes off when it gets so hot in here from the body heat that we, as your entertainers and informers, are sweating. And in other years when I do this expo, you notice I'm always touching my nose and people are accusing me of doing cocaine. What I'm trying to tell you is that you think it's hot down there, I got 6 feet more of heat that goes to rise, right? And within 20 minutes, my nose is just going to be dumping off sweat. So I will try to remember not to touch my nose. But I don't expect that will work. Okay, so here's a really cool thing that I want to start with, because once we get rolling, this train is just going to keep on barreling down those tracks. What I wanted to start with, just because this might be something really cool for you, is that we, meaning Gaia, where Corey and I work in Boulder, we are hiring, okay? And we're not just hiring like 1 or 2 jobs. We're talking about a huge company that is in a massive growth expansion phase. This is like the equivalent of the California gold rush. Okay, there's gold in them there hills, and the hills are Boulder, Colorado. It's called the Flatiron Mountains. So what we got, if you look at this list, you can't really read it too well because it's kind of far away, but I will read to you the next one here where you can actually see the positions. Just think about this for a moment. Any of these things. Now, it says there up at the top, Santa Monica B is the room where this is happening. And what that means is if you go down this hallway and then you see to the right of the stairwell going down, okay? There's a room in there, and I'm not kidding when I say that you can actually have a high-level meeting here. Some very important people who are central to the hiring process are here, and it might be a really cool thing for you. So check out what's there. Head of content, TV producer, assistant producer, news manager, news anchor, talent manager, video editor, social content producer, 3D animator, director of photography, seeking truth researcher. Well, that's like freaking everybody in the room. Okay? Please don't like overwhelm them. Sound engineer, writer, financial analyst. That's better somebody else than me. I'm not really good with that stuff. Head of sales, ambassador manager, marketing manager, graphic designer, copywriter, social media expert. That's probably, again, just about everybody in the room. SEO expert, that's search engine optimization, human resources director, data engineer, marketing data analyst, international program manager, customer service representative, fluent in Spanish, Portuguese, or German, or preferably all three, but that's probably too much to ask, and executive assistant. So, like, it's huge. And this is something in which, if you get hired, you do end up working in Boulder. But I've been spending a lot of time in Boulder, and it's kind of like a little Los Angeles. It's got its own really cool vibe. So that is something, if you've ever thought about it, if you've ever wanted to work with us and be involved in this cool team, there's a golden opportunity, the likes of which may never again happen like it is this weekend. So that's a very cool thing coming up. Okay. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to bring Corey in, and we're going to start a dialogue on some of these topics. This is, and I can promise you this is the most visually robust talk that we have ever given. It's going to be superseded in visual robustness. But you like that? Robustness. I didn't joke about the other one.
You just did. He has to work it into every presentation.
It's part of the game. If somebody tells me I can't do something, then probably I will. You know, that's just how it works.
Well, don't be quiet.
Ooh. I think people would get mad if I was quiet. You know, they paid for this. Okay, by the way, folks, just so that you understand the logistics of what's going on, we have a gigantic line outside the room of people still trying to get in. So we are going to probably end up having a standing room only situation. So please don't be offended by this. This is just what we call a happy problem. Right? When you sell this many tickets, that shows that you are listening and you are supportive. And I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. We are winning this war. This cannot be lied about. Nobody can say this is a fake crowd. This is not fake news. This is real. Okay, for whatever reason, y'all are crazy enough to want to come in here and listen to this for 2 hours. So we're going to give you a good show. Well, I'm not crazy. What are you saying, David? Fuck you, David. Hey, look. If people think that you're crazy, I had a Shinto acupuncturist friend who told me, you are becoming more normal. Okay? So we have a more normal audience here. Let's just phrase it that way. We'll keep it smooth. So how the heck did I end up after being online for 20 years doing all this stuff, how did I end up crossing paths with somebody like Corey Goode? Because it's almost like a foreign language. One of the problems that we have is people who have not really been educated about the big picture of UFOs. They watch something like Cosmic Disclosure, they're like, who the heck is this dude? Because you notice when Corey's talking, he's like totally deadpan. Right? He's not in it he's not like mugging for the camera. He's not wanting to look good. He's out there, and we have both been through incredible hardships to do what we're doing. And we are not giving up. Not even after we did our last taping, and Corey ends up in the frickin' emergency room. I don't know if you heard about this, but I put the whole thing out on my Facebook page, and you guys prayed for him, and that's probably why he's alive right now.
Thank you.
I'm really not kidding. It's a whole other talk I don't have time to go into today, but suffice it to say, there's a guy named Dr. Daniel Benor, and he analyzed hundreds and hundreds of different studies of healing done scientifically in laboratory conditions. 64% of the healing studies of psychic healing showed a profound effect. So what the lamestream is going to do is they're going to show you one of the 36% that didn't work, and they say, oh, see, healing has been scientifically disproven. But we know that it works, and I don't use that power very often, but in a case like that, I absolutely said, this is it. If there was ever a time to marshal the crowdfunding of healing, okay, we did it, and he's still with us, thank God. I got broken into a very strange new reality in 1993 when a good friend of mine in college comes in all white-faced and says, dude, aliens are real. And I'm like laughing. And he wanted me to sit down, but I could tell pretty quickly he's very serious. Turns out he had a 2-hour private briefing with his college physics professor who had worked for NASA throughout the 1970s. And in the higher echelons of NASA, it was considered common knowledge that extraterrestrials had visited Earth, that they had landed here, that they had crashed their ships, and the ships had been back-engineered into useful technology. And he said, and this was in 1993, within 20 years, the technology that you are going to see will blow your mind, and it will come out in the open. And now we take for granted that we got these little buddies here, okay? In which this is like the whole frickin' desktop tower computer in one little thing. We kind of taken this for granted. Well, that's about the 20-year time frame is 2013. Sure enough, all this technology that nobody had anticipated ends up emerging. And that was pretty fantastic in and of itself, of fulfilled prophecy. After he told me this data, which included a lot of specifics, you probably all heard it before, about how there were three types, all this NASA guy knew was there were 3 types of beings, some of which look like grays, some of which look just like humans, but they're definitely not born on Earth. And they might have little differences, like their irises are purple, and they have like a diamond shape instead of a round iris, or subtle little things like ridges on the roof of their mouth instead of a flat palate like we have. You get enough specifics like that, including propulsion systems and all this weird stuff, and you say, you know what, this guy is telling the truth. Then a few years later, out comes Colonel Philip Corso, who literally said exactly the same thing that I was told in the book The Day After Roswell about parts that had been taken out of UFOs and back-engineered into, and I will list some for you, computer chips, fiber optic cables, light-emitting diodes, LED lights. We didn't have that before. Kevlar, like for the bulletproof vest. Velcro, believe it or not. Infrared night vision. And then there's other technologies that we don't get to hear about, like anti-gravity. So even back in 1993, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If our government, if you want to call it that, got these things and used them and could back engineer them, then why wouldn't they have taken off outside of Earth's atmosphere? Why wouldn't they have gone around our solar system? And then, why wouldn't they want to land on some of these other places and figure out what was there? So, very early along in my work, I was lucky enough to find the work of Richard C. Hoagland, who got into Mars. And this was the way the book looked when I first got it, back in, again, 1993. And it frickin' blew me away because I had heard from my buddy that he had done a presentation at the United Nations talking about the space on Mars that he's pointing to right here. That this is not just some trick of light and shadow, but in fact, as you see here, you have this artificial-looking face. It's clearly human-like with a headdress around it, next to what very obviously looks like a city of pyramids. And let me tilt this so you can see that, because I can look at the other one. Corey, this is new for him too, by the way. We just kind of, we do this, we throw it together, and we make it great. We're both so busy we don't have time to plan these things out too far. So you notice there's some very, very pyramid-like things here, but let's take a look at kind of a side angle now. You see the face up at the top right, the pyramids down there on the left, and look down there on the right. That one down there is a 5-sided pyramid called the D&M. And this is what it looks like from overhead. Do you think that's some kind of just random crater or mountain? No, come on. And also what we see is that the proportions of the human, the Vitruvian man like Leonardo da Vinci drew, you spread your arms and legs out, that's what it looks like it's a human being. Now, this thing is estimated to be 1.5 miles wide based on the size of the Mars orbiter frames. 1.5 miles wide and probably over 1/2 mile tall. You could fit millions of people inside this structure alone. And then the other very strange thing, if you look at it, let's see where, I can probably look at it better here. You'll notice that at the top left, there is this river of what looks like something ran off of it. And it appears that this thing was actually blown up from the inside, and that's the melt-off of all the heated debris that was inside. There was a war. These people got wiped out. So Hoagland also was really into this stuff about alignments, and he said there was all these alignments between the objects on Mars that we found. And I got so excited about this that it began a research binge. In his book, he also describes some very strange stuff that they found on the moon, beginning with the first mission around the moon that took pictures, which was not America. It was the Russians in 1965. Now look at this stuff. This is before it all got classified. Now you're not going to see very much here, so I'm going to zoom in. What we're looking at right now is a photo of the moon. Now that thing on the bottom left, that circle, is not what we're looking at. That is just some instrument that got in the way of the shot. You look down at the bottom right corner of this photo. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit now. You can't really see it, so I'm going to do it again even closer. There is a frickin' glass dome down there. You see that on the bottom right? On the limb of the moon? It's a frickin' dome of glass. What the heck is that thing doing down there? That's not supposed to be there, and if you look carefully,
It
you can
used to be a dome.
Well, yeah, it got blown up. No, he's right. And this is all going to be part of our story. So this is a smashed up dome, and this is the physical evidence, okay? This is 1965, before the government was classifying what they saw. There it is, and it looks like a pyramid. You notice that there's 2 sides that slope up to the same size, and then it's got a flat top just like the ones in Mesoamerica. Very shortly, just a few frames after, the moon rotates a little bit more. That one that we saw on the bottom right is now out of view because it's now covered by more of the moon's size. And then this little guy shows up in the middle on the right. Look at that. You see it over there? Let's take a closer look now. Oh my God. Now this thing is estimated to be miles tall. And you actually have the skeptics trying to say, oh yeah, this is just some glitch in the film. 2 glitches in a row? One that looks like a pyramid of glass, one that looks like a tower? You're telling me that's a glitch? How could this thing be sticking miles above the surface? Now, if these were the only examples, that would be fine, but then we have this very, very strange thing Hoagland found frame 4822, a lot of times you ask for it, you get totally nothing. It just looks black. But then he kept asking for it, and it turns out that one of the times that they sent in a request for it, they got this guy. It doesn't look like a whole lot. And one of the things that he pointed out here was this weird little area in which you see what appears to be a square clearing right here. And you can see the sides of the square. You also see what kind of look like pyramids, like a row of pyramids here. Okay, that's all fine and good. Some people want to believe that, some people don't. But when you go over here, NASA typically crops it out right about here. But when he got the original, when whoever was supposed to hide things away in drawer 4822 forgot about not giving them the original, because they got 12 different copies of this thing, some of it didn't have this cropped out over here, and this is what they saw on the surface of the moon. It's in the original. Lots of people have seen the original. This is not fake. Do you think that looks like a geological formation? Absolutely not. This is a base. It's very likely an active base. This was taken during the Apollo missions, so we're looking at like 1969. And it clearly looks as if you have a series of rooms that are all interconnected at right angles and a tower in the middle that sticks up a little more. And it looks like it's made out of glass-like material. There could be lots of people living in there. Then we have this very strange thing. This is an example of photos that the engineer Ken Johnson was told to destroy his original copies of Apollo photographs, which he was storing. At one point, they were stored in a broken-down, vagrant McDonald's, believe it or not. And it was no longer being used, and so there was all these boxes of NASA images of the moon, and they told him, burn them, destroy them. And he didn't, thank God. Now, we've had Donna Teets for the Disclosure Project 2001. I was there. She then got the name Donna Hare, saying that NASA, her testimony was that NASA airbrushes real stuff out of these photographs. This is the official NASA image of this frame right here, and you notice down here where the arrow is, it's different. If you go to the Ken Johnston version over here, there's a frickin' dome on the surface of the moon, which they deleted. So please, when your friends are telling you, you know, this is a live stream, so you guys can get this, and you can have this at home, you can watch it as many times as you want, you can show people the proof. Something is going on here. There's stuff on the moon that isn't supposed to be there. And then this one really blew me away. This is when Richard Hoagland and I ended up co-authoring together. This is the original NASA AS14 669301. And it doesn't look like much, although there's this little tiny fleck of blue you can't really see. But when you image enhance it, you see all this stuff that looks like glass. And then another frame taken just a few steps away is 669279. Look at this. Just with a little bit of Photoshop, all you got to do is use the curves filter, which just pulls out more of what's in the image. And all of a sudden you see glass beams on a massive scale. I mean, this thing, whatever they posed in front of, it is frickin' enormous. Okay, that is an enormous, enormous object. Here's another example where the sun was setting and light catches off of some of these glass ruins. And you see shards poking up off the surface of the moon. It's totally amazing. Now, Corey has also talked about the idea that a lot of ships were left behind on the moon's surface. And this is one that I didn't put in my book. For whatever reason, I could only use so many images. But this is AS-15, P-9625, and 9630. Now, look at this. What we're seeing here is a crater that has this very strange object in it. And when we do these two images together, and then we basically sharpen it using known filters, look at what happens. It's called a composite. Oh my gosh. Now, Corey, does this look like anything that you've ever seen? Do you think this one is a real example? It
very well could be. There are a number of crashed vessels that are on on the moon that were from antiquity. There was a major treaty signed, and in that treaty, they left all of the debris from the big battle that they had as a reminder or a testament for other generations, so that they wouldn't have such a terrible war again.
So to me, this is an example, and this is another one that's really, really classic. It's called the Blair Cuspids. I talk about it in the book. This is one of the only surviving images of it from Argosy magazine by Ivan T. Sanderson. And if you can't see it very well, let's do this next one. Okay, what you're seeing here is literally an object that is many stories tall, at least 13 stories tall, obelisk on the surface of the moon with others around it. And this was formally being analyzed scientifically as of about 1968, and then once again the clamp goes down. So Corey, do you think that they were deliberately allowing some stuff like this out in case they might disclose earlier than they ended up doing? Is that part of what was going on here?
Yes, they have to seed the consciousness. That's the way their magic works. They will put out information and then redact it or ridicule it later, but the seed is planted. So yes, it's to set things up. That they have things planned out hundreds of years, and it's just a part of their limited disclosure.
All right, the jacket is off. This is getting real, folks. We've gone from Tux to Cuba. Okay. Now, this was a Russian depiction of a more side-angle view of what they think was down there. And sure enough, it looks like a city of obelisks. And interestingly enough, a comic book that comes out 2 years after this breaks into the news called UFO Flying Saucers issue number 2 actually did a comic treatment of this. Here's the cover of the magazine, and Gold Key Comics, they're the ones that used to do the Donald Duck. My father used to take me to the newsstand every Sunday. I'd buy these Gold Key Comics all the time.
Our graphic novel's going to look way better than that.
Okay, fair enough. This is a historical document, though, bro. You got to appreciate that. And sure enough, what we see here is UFOs on the moon. And then, sure enough, we have this guy here, and he says, my colleagues and I believe that they may be some kind of obelisk, completely different from anything else on the moon's surface. Now, I don't know if you can see what I can see from here, but you look at this dude's eyes for a minute. Those are the eyes of a happy man. That's all I'm going to say, folks. They are blood red.
Keeping the secret is
you can
just
extrapolate. You can extrapolate from that what you like. He looks like he is baked as a cake. Okay, I'm going to make it easy for you. It wasn't legal back then either. But there's the obelisks in 1970 comic book. Freaking crazy. And then they fictionalize a little bit, and they have one of these obelisks which creates some kind of gravitational field around itself. But Corey, look at this. All this freaking ancient space junk and bodies captured by the gravitational field of the obelisk in 1970. What do you think they might be telling us there?
They're prepping us for either ancient builder race or some of the groups that came afterwards that built structures.
Right. And the idea being that there's a lot of junk left behind on the moon, right?
Oh yeah, it's covered in debris.
So that's a very interesting thing. There's all this stuff going on, including back in 1958. Now remember, the NASA frame of that face that I showed you, that didn't show up until 1976. This is 1958. What the heck is this? Come on. How do you possibly maintain a skeptical opinion in the face of evidence like this? A 1958 comic that is called The Face on Mars, in which the actual shape and structure of the face itself, other than the fact that it's tilted up straight instead of lying flat, it looks freaking identical almost to the actual face on Mars. And then the whole story is, I talk about this in Ascension Mysteries, my new book. It's all about this ancient race that warred and blew up their planet. They talk about the asteroid belt being the remnants of this exploded planet. So I'm doing all this research. Hoagland's book totally blew my mind. I'm seeing there's ruins on the moon. There's ruins on Mars. Somebody's been out in our solar system for a long time. Then in 1996, I read this Law of One material, which the first book of which is called the Ra material, because Ra is the name of the source. It claims to be a positive entity that helped the Atlanteans and the Egyptians way back when, and their message got distorted and confused, and they had to withdraw. Then they come back, and they were able to get through people that were actually doing intuitive channeling and get messages through. Now, in general, I don't really endorse channeling at all. I think it's kind of really taken a big downturn. But you read this stuff, it's like diving into some frickin' scientific manual that has all this jargon and all this very interesting stuff going on. And Corey, we're about to get into the space program, but when you were in the program, did they know about this?
Yes, absolutely. The rank and file were told that it was Luciferian and evil to stay away from it.
Right.
But the brass were encouraged to read it and a number of other books.
So the thing that blew my mind is that there was so much stuff in this Law of One that matched up with the research I had gotten out of 3 years of reading probably 300 books. And it's a terrible shame because I left my computer behind when I moved from New York in the house that I'd been staying in, and I had a complete list of every book I'd read in college, and it was about 300. And I lost that file, which drives me crazy. Anyway, here's the cosmology, because it's not just all this weird stuff about ETs, it's a philosophy that they're teaching in this material, and it's very strange. It says that the only thing in the universe that really exists is identity, consciousness. Meaning there's only one identity, there's only one consciousness in the universe. Then it basically says this cosmic consciousness became lonely or bored, something like that, and it decided to experience multiplicity. But the trick is it can't just sit there like somebody crazy in the corner with two puppets on his hands and ha 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 ha, oh yeah, yeah. It had to actually give each piece free will to be able to define its own curriculum. And so that law of free will becomes central to the whole discussion. The law of free will. Free will must be preserved for anybody in the universe, which means if you violate free will, you get karma. The universe then separated into these 7 major layers that we could think of like the colors of the rainbow or the sounds in the white keys in the piano called the diatonic or solfeggio scales, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And each of these colors represents a dimension, if you will. So there's 7 major dimensions, and they all correspond with your 7 chakras in the body, these energy centers moving from the root chakra up to the crown. So they say these are actual planes of existence, and weirdly enough, they say you have bodies in each density. So even though we're human here, you're also multidimensional. You already have a 4th dimensional, 5th dimensional, 6th dimensional, and 7th dimensional body, and you are also the one creator at the same time. And all those things are happening at once because actually there is no time. We're going to get to this in a moment, but Corey, how does the law of one cosmology, as we're saying it so far, jibe with what you've already heard in person from these beings we're about to meet, the Blue Avians?
It falls in line perfectly.
So the densities, they've actually described where some beings came from one density, some from another, things like this.
Right. They all started from source and were returning to source through a process. And these densities are consciousness. They're not different dimensions outside of where we are now.
And they all coexist.
Right. A 4th density being we could interact with just as much as we can a 2nd density being.
Right. And let me point one thing out here really quick, which is that I was confused on this at first because, okay, well, we're 3rd density, but then there's 1st and 2nd. And they explain that these are 3-dimensional things. Like you have a 1st density could be earth, air, fire, and water. One of those 4 elements. 2nd density is where those raw materials start to appear as biological life. Everything from single-celled organisms, plants, animals, all the way up to complex animal birds, things like this. Everything except humans is where you get individuation, self-consciousness. That's third density. Now, before these densities ever went any farther than just being essentially coexisting layers in the cosmos, the first great central sun is formed, the first star. That star buds off other stars. Those make more and more and more, and they eventually flower into galaxies. Then galaxies bud off new galaxies. The stars in those galaxies, in turn, are spitting out planets. And then the planets have water, and it's actually far more common than you realize, intelligent life. As a result, we have countless numbers of intelligent civilizations scattered throughout our universe. So this is, you know, we have this idea, oh, we're God's chosen, we're the only ones. That's a narcissistic view. But it's very important. Some people think that if there's other civilizations out there, that this one could just get tossed by the side, not get paid attention to. Oh yeah, we'll let that one go. We'll let that planet get wiped out. But what they tell us is that they're very interested in making sure that every part of creation is protected and nurtured and supported. And so we're about to see how much they came in to help us here. Just very quickly, this scientific study from Pedigura and other scientists came out October 2013, the prevalence of Earth-sized planets orbiting sun-like stars. This is an official NASA study. And what it says here, you can read it down here, 22% of sun-like stars harbor Earth-sized planets orbiting in their habitable zones, and the nearest may be only 12 light years away. And when you actually get in there, the statistics of what this thing tells us is totally astonishing. We're just going to go through this quickly. I've used this now like 5 years in a row, ever since it came out, or 4 years, I guess. At least 1% of all stars in the universe have a habitable, watery planet like ours. That's 100 billion Earths. It's crazy. There's 100 Earth-like planets for every grain of sand on Earth. Try to imagine that one. There's one guy in the back, he's on 3 hits of acid. And he knows exactly, oh, there he is. And he knows exactly what I'm talking about. He gets that. Oh, dude. 100 Earths. I'm going to find one with 100 on it right here. Let it flow through my fingers, bro. Assume... Corey's not laughing. That's bad, okay? I probably need to let him talk a little bit.
I've heard all of this so many times.
We assume only 1% of these planets that are watery have life on them. That means every grain of sand on Earth, this is from that study, represents a planet with actual life. And it's probably a lot more than that. So, it gets even better. Let's just blast through this. If 1% of those planets with life has intelligence like we see on Earth, which is actually an underestimate, that would be 10 quadrillion intelligent civilizations in the universe. It's unthinkable almost. You apply that to our galaxy, and they estimate we have 1 billion Earths, which, by the way, this is an old study. They've now jacked it up to 40 billion Earths just in our galaxy. 40 billion. 100,000 intelligent civilizations, and the Law of One estimates there's about 100 million intelligent civilizations just in our galaxy. So this is a gigantic number. And the Law of One also says the vast majority of ETs are benevolent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, it seems like the ones that cause trouble like to kick it around.
They're trolling here, aren't they?
Yeah, they kick it around Earth a lot.
This is like a little oasis for the negative because it can still live here. It's been kicked out, apparently. So back then, I didn't know that somebody would come forward with information that verified this, but Ra explained that they started out on Venus 2.6 billion years ago. And they said they had a strong affinity for the pyramid shape, meaning that they built it all over the place. So, Corey, that's what we're going to call the show, right? We've talked about this. The show is called So Corey. We're not going to call it Cosmic Disclosure anymore.
This is kind of a similar format.
So, Corey, isn't it interesting that it says that they were building pyramids all over the place 2.6 billion years ago in the Law of One?
Very much so, since one of the things they've discovered in Antarctica is a number of super large pyramids that date back about 1.8 billion years.
And you also dropped a bombshell on me when I was working on Ascension Mysteries, which is not only had I heard from Richard Hoagland's top insider, who we're calling, I want to make sure I say the right name, we call him Bruce. We mind if we call him Bruce? Yes, we call him Bruce. If you've ever seen Monty Python, you'll get that, but not one person laughed. He's freaking dying on stage. Oh my God. He told me that we're in a cosmic junkyard. And what he meant by that is that there are these pyramids and obelisks that look like they're made out of some kind of crystal on moons and planets all over the place in our solar system. But he was told that that's as far as it goes. We haven't explored past the boundaries of our solar system, because at that level, what we're calling the Military Industrial Complex Space Program, or the MICSSP, that's all they know. But then, Corey, you told me that there's more pyramids and obelisks of crystal out there than just in our solar system. How widespread is this thing?
It is in the approximately 52 closest stars in what is called the, I keep using the NASA term, the local stellar
Local cluster.
The local star cluster is
Yeah.
what they call it. But yeah, it's approximately 52 stars, and we're right smack dab in the middle of them. And because of our location and the dynamics of our location in the cosmic web, it is a supergate, a very coveted supergate that allows these beings that do a lot of barter and trading to travel all across our galaxy and into other galaxies.
And in the Ascension Mysteries book, I didn't have a slide in here for that. I didn't know he was going to say that, but I actually researched that claim, which he just tossed out on the phone. And sure enough, there is a vertical, what they call plasma chimney, right next to our sun that goes straight up out of our galaxy and off into the cosmos. Totally validating what he was saying. Because, Corey, the stargates, when you actually get a stargate, you're going to see some plasma around it, right?
Yeah, well, normally what you see is the kind of the effect you see on the road, the mirage effect when it's hot outside. And it's not like on Stargate where it's a flat thing that you just walk through. It is a sphere, and you can enter in it from all directions. They'll have one of those opened up, and there will be personnel with their equipment all heading. It looks like they're all about to run into each other in the middle, but they disappear and go in. And it also, I've seen large like metal beams that they're transporting for construction. They'll open the portal in the middle of it, and the beam will fold up and then go in like spaghetti almost.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I always hear new things. That's what's so amazing, is when you have a real insider, like the fake ones on the internet, they keep recycling their story. When you get a real insider, you toss them a totally random question, and you get this amazing answer you never expected. I'd never heard that before. It's really cool. So what is the name that the people on the inside give for these the group that made these ruins? What do they call it?
They're referred to as the ancient builder race. And we've gone and excavated a lot of the ruins. And the craziest thing is they found areas where there used to be writing or glyphs of some sort, but someone had come in and sanded them or removed them, just like the kings would do. The kings would come in, and after they won, they would erase the history of the prior king. Something very similar had been done by beings that came here long after. So it's been a big mystery, and only recently have they found working ancient builder race ruins, or they're not ruins, technology that they've been able to learn a lot more about the ancient builders.
Folks next door sound like they're having more fun than we are. But I think we got a bigger crowd. Let's give them some noise. Give them some noise. Yeah! All right. I think we win. So they said that they originated on Venus. Venus, which is now this weird hot planet. But one of the amazing things that happened to Corey with one of these 5 alliance groups was that he was brought. Well, let you tell the story. You were brought to Venus, and what happened?
I was brought to Venus, and I was shown a working ancient builder race tower, pyramid-like tower, most likely what the ones on the moon may have looked like. And there was a being there called the Sentinel, who apparently had been put there by the ancient builder race a long time ago. He wasn't AI, but he seemed to, he wasn't, there was something just not normal about him, which may sound weird because that's not normal. But I actually got to see,
we're all friends here.
I actually got to see the ancient builder technology operate, and I was given a download that to this point I haven't been able to access. So I mean, it's incredible technology, extremely ancient and heavily coveted by not only the military industrial complex, but just about every non-terrestrial race that is still visiting us.
And so how amazing is it that we have this law of one material that gives us this incredible model of a civilization that originated on Venus 2.6 billion years ago and built pyramids all over the place, and then the real world data from people that have actually gotten these crash disks and gone out in the solar system and checked things out totally lines up with what the law of one said. And it gets stranger because the law of one says that everything originated from one infinite consciousness that started it all, and now we have scientific proof of that. And this is another thing I'm just going to say quickly, because probably most of you are aware of this, but a few of you are not. It's worth mentioning. This came out in 2013 in September, where these guys, Nima Arkani Hamed and Yaroslav Trunka from Caltech, and those are tongue twisters, I practiced that. They have figured out that all matter in the universe, all space and all time is a manifestation of a single object. That's very different than what we normally think. It's not the Big Bang at all. It's a totally new way of looking at the universe. This thing they call the amplituhedron. What is the amplituhedron? It is a geometric form, which this, you don't really see it too well, but this diagram, well, no, first of all, let's say what it is. They're telling us that all of space and time can be scientifically derived from this one geometry. In other words, there is no space, there is no time. It's all happening now in one point, and anywhere you zoom down in the cosmos, you're going to see ultimately this one form. And the craziest part about this is the geometry. This is the diagram that he originally made. This is the one that I made for the book, so you can really see it's all tetrahedrons. It's sacred geometry. And the big takeaway for me, this is the original form that Penrose was working on in the 1970s. He couldn't quite solve it, but he got fairly close. He was the guy working with Hawking on the Big Bang model in black holes. He had his own model. This thing, as it turns out, is just 1/4 of your sacred geometry Merkaba, which Richard Hoagland was seeing all over the place on the surface of Mars in the alignment between the objects on Mars. So sure enough, as I phase shift between the two, you can see this is God, if you will. This is the seed of all creation, the creator, the universe. And it's just one form in this geometric pattern. So these guys are saying that's all there actually is. And the Tibetans were saying the same thing. This is their image of the creation. This is their image of the original and the only thing that really exists. Notice any similarities? Yeah, this is called the Vajrarahi Mandala. It's a 2D diagram of the same thing, even with the geometry inside. So what's going on here, my opinion is that the Tibetans were contacted by extraterrestrials who gave them accurate scientific knowledge that we only now are starting to understand. Is that something that, to your knowledge, is happening often, that ancient cultures were being given pieces of data like this that were actually correct, even though we might not know it yet?
Yes, often it's given to them telepathically, but back before they had a certain a treaty, they were appearing to people face to face, staying amongst us for a long period of time, giving us this type of information.
And, of course, the Star of David fits this pattern. The Masonic square and compass fits the pattern. And that originally I do not think was negative, though eventually Freemasonry was co-opted to be used as secrecy for very dark groups. All this stuff apparently started out as positive, and the idea also being that we have Merkabas around our physical bodies. We are a Merkaba. We have that sacred geometry in our soul as well. So all of this stuff in the Law of One led me to understand that if what they were saying was true, there's all these ET groups out there, and there's much more going on around the Earth with extraterrestrials than we think. Now, in the Law of One, they call a certain group the Orion Confederation. Those are the villains. But unfortunately, Don Elkins never asked, what do they look like? And what we found out from Corey, this was one of the hardest things for me to accept, actually, when I started to talk to him, because nobody wants to talk about the Draco, as that book is titled, Don't Mention the Reptilians. So, you remember back when we first started to talk about this, and I was like, wait a minute, you're saying it's like a freaking dinosaur head stuck on a human body? And I was having a hard time with that.
Yeah, and also this Orion group, or this Draco Confederation, is made up more than just the Draco.
Right.
Yeah.
But sure enough, we had this movie come out, Jupiter Ascending, February 6, 2015, and this is when Corey had come over to visit me for the first time. We go watch the movie together.
Actually, we went to the Conscious Life Expo.
That's right.
And then we left
and we
went
caught
to
the
go see
movie.
that.
Yeah, that's what happened. So it was right after I'd given a big talk, and then he was literally like flexing in his seat and freaking out.
I was not.
No, you did.
I mean, you over animate everything.
You were like that. Here you got these tall reptilians in the movie that are advising a weird human-like group of people who are very dark because they're feeding off of others to stay young. They're literally like creating this bath out of, harvested human beings that they soak in and then they get young again. And it's all being directed by these Draco people. And then you got these weird scenes like you see here. I mean, yes, it does kind of look like it's projected on a garbage bag. I apologize for that, but there's the reptilian down there with the big tail. They don't actually have tails. But there's some pretty interesting... I can barely even see that from where I am. Can you see that at all? Okay. It's a very toothy, nasty-looking creature. And here's another example of it, where he's like really getting in somebody's face. So this was a very strange thing, and it seems to be revealing some stuff that they want us to know in their own way, and they do it through fiction. And this was our original mock-up of the white Draco. I didn't actually have time to get the real image that we finally fixed, but this is what they look like at the highest royal level, 14 feet tall. And then we have a subservient race that's known as the reptoids, and they actually look like this. Now, Corey, this is another thing that fascinated me. A lot of people just automatically assume, oh yeah, reptilians are green. They're all green. Has that been your experience?
No, quite a bit of brown, a little bit of red in the scales, but and they have patterns of scales, not like freckles or something, but patterns that distinguish them.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular one, a lot of people that have encountered it have described it as a gray. And a lot of times people will describe a reptilian type gray. And this is a subservient group to the Draco that they've conquered a lot of other reptilian type races and co-opted them, but they've also done a lot of genetic engineering.
How trusting is this guy, David Wilcock, to just randomly drink a glass of water that somebody hands him on stage at this conference? He's brave. What do you think about the mouth being open the way that looks? Is that at all accurate?
The teeth they're needle sharp.
Really?
Yeah.
So even sharper than that?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, and what you have shared with us is that the Germans actually were the first ones in modern times to make contact with this particular group, and that has evolved into something that we call the Dark Fleet.
Yes, and William Tompkins has released a lot of other information that corroborates what I've stated. And yeah, the Nazis started working with the reptilians, and this developed into Dark Fleet. And
one of the weird things that happened was that I had a dream, quote unquote, in which I had been taken to a lunar base. And I was describing to him the uniform that people were wearing on this base that I got taken to. And then you sent me this art like the same day. And I'm like, oh my God, that's them.
Yeah, that's one of the Dark Fleet uniforms.
So do you think, given how weird that was, and we never really talked about it on Cosmic Disclosure, and I don't know if I even mentioned it on my website, are there people that could actually be interacting with folks like the Dark Fleet and have it totally wiped out of their mind and they're not even aware that it happened?
That's standard operating procedure.
Really?
Yes. If you have contact with one of them, they're going to they're not only going to wipe your memory, but they're going to give you a series of screen memories that you're going to have to work through.
Right. How widespread do you think this kind of contact with people on Earth is?
Much wider than you would believe. And the people that have probably been picked up most are the ones that are viciously skeptical. They seem triggered if you bring up any of this, that most likely they've had a lot of interaction that they're programmed to have a visceral reaction to.
So when most people think about the so-called alien abduction scenario, we have a lot of really great ufologists out there, and I don't want to dismiss their work. The typical idea is, you're going to have scoop marks. You're going to have 4 hours of missing time. You wake up in bed and there's dirt on your feet. This kind of stuff doesn't sound like that to me. What's going on?
Well, no, often, and it depends on who or what you're picked up by, what your experience is going to be. What normally happens if you get picked up by a non-terrestrial, you go, no matter what the experience is, when they bring you back home, one of these military space program groups, they will come and re-abduct you and then interrogate you to get intelligence about what your interaction was about with the non-terrestrials. Then you get another mind wipe and more screen memories. So you have what the non-terrestrials did and then what the rehab agents did. And it's usually the rehab agents' mind control and screen memories that cause the most problems for experiencers.
Now, based on what you've told me personally from the cosmic beings that we're about to get into here, and we're going to see some great images of them, they said to you through me, and I feel like I'm kind of the guinea pig or the canary in the coal mine for everybody else right now, that if I do enough work, that I would be able to remember more of these things that actually happen, but you got to break through this sort of electrochemical barrier that is created in your mind. So how is there going to be changes in the physics of the Earth or changes in consciousness that will allow people to start remembering this and that the mind control won't work anymore?
Well, obviously the mind control is not working the way it used to. The reptilians, or not just the reptilians, but the group that they're a part of, this conglomerate, for over 6,000 years, they've had technology in orbit that controls our behavior the way they want. They can agitate us, they can give us fear, they can give us direct information. And that technology, since these energetic waves have started, the beginning of this ascension, if we want to call it that, ever since the energy's really started picking up, that their technology's not working as well. They've had to basically turn it up all the way to max. And that is causing further problems. We're beginning to see a lot of people that are starting to behave very strangely, very triggered. And it's not just the election. It's everybody is having these issues, and it has to do with the energetic changes that we're trying to acclimate to.
All right, so that is a very freaking creepy thing for us to have talked about. But one of the things that's going to happen, if you say that you want full disclosure, okay, then we need to show whoever is going to be watching this, which could be a large audience and very high-level audience based on the intel we're getting, we need to show them that this can be discussed, and there's no panic. Well, somebody just left, actually, but I think that's because they had to go to the bathroom. Nobody's panicking. Nobody's running out of the room. They're not, like, ripping you apart and ripping organs out of your body when they do this, right? It's not like some torture thing.
No, but if we do get...
But. He says the but. Oh, that's great.
If we do get what all of us are wanting, full disclosure, it's not going to... I've stated before, we're not all going to be standing around holding hands singing Kumbaya. It's going to be the most traumatic experience that society has ever had. But just remember, all evolution happens through stress, and it's something that is needed. We're ready for it. We need it, and we don't need to be treated like children anymore and just given tiny bits of information over decades.
Amen. He drops the mic. Boom. So you've all probably heard this if you've ever really paid any attention to what we've done, but it broke down into 5 factions. The first faction, as Corey has explained, I'm just going to blast through this really quick. Solar Warden. That was the one. Now, why do they call it Warden? What was the objective here?
The objective was to police the solar system, because for many years we had zero control over who came and went. So we set up basically a grid, and they have basically air traffic control out in space. So any intruder that comes in, they immediately have to give a friend or foe signal. If they don't have that, then they need to respond to hails. If that doesn't happen, these guys go in and run them away if they can.
And I want to point out that we now have had the whistleblower, William Tompkins, delineate that he was working on the original prototypes of these cigar-shaped craft that actually became the Solar Warden craft that you said you ended up working on.
Right, and when Gaia was out to interview him, Jay Widener showed him some of the images of the craft, and he was blown away.
Yeah. And we also have the UFO hacker, Gary McKinnon, who saw this code name inside the hack when he went into NASA computers, with a list of non-terrestrial officers, no less. So it's a very interesting story. Second faction is what we're now calling the ICC, or Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. Now, how did this evolve? We actually had a very interesting Gaia episode. If you haven't subscribed to Gaia, you really should. It's $10 a month. It's totally awesome. Give a big hand if you're already a Gaia subscriber. Oh, man. Why am I selling you? Forget about it.
Yeah. If not, go to blueavians.com.
That's true.
And you can watch some free episodes and then sign up there.
And then we get credit for that when you do it through that, which is important.
We actually make some money.
We actually make money that way. So Tompkins, in one of those episodes that we shot with him, said that, well, you know, the people had to make some money. And so sure enough, it started out as just a protective thing, but then these defense contractors get involved. And what are they doing that makes money, Corey?
Well,
or the equivalent of money thereof?
Yeah, they don't use money. It's the barter system. And the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, they're the ones that are coordinating a lot of the trade, whether it be biologicals, to put it nicely, or technology, even art. Some of the missing art from World War II is most likely hanging on a wall in another solar system. So there's a huge commerce system out there, and we're dealing with over 900 different races, and they're coming to us to produce technologies. We've gotten so good at it.
And one of the insiders that I have is a guy who has claimed to have handled 1,300 different types of extraterrestrial bodies. And we found out that he was working in one of about 70 or 80 different rooms just in his little wing, of which there were 4 wings per floor, of which the base had I think it was 84 floors or something like this. So there's an enormous amount of these coming around, these bodies that are showing up that people are autopsying and taking a look at. And so we may get some new testimony about that very soon.
Yeah, one of the biggest things to trade are biologicals, genetic material.
Why do they want that? What's the objective in getting these bodies?
Well, they want to understand the anatomy and how different anatomies develop in different environments. But also, they are looking for a way to exploit genetics and to exploit different parts of the body that may produce medicines or other things for us that we can use. You okay?
Well,
I didn't know if you're having a little tick.
No, we're fine. We're fine. Okay, so this, what are they actually making that people want to trade for? What's the ultimate product that's being exported by the ICC?
Various different types of spacecraft or components that can be integrated into the non-terrestrial group spacecraft. And a lot of those are bio-neuro interface type technologies.
Moving right along at a deadly pace. GGLN, Global Galactic League of Nations. This kind of seemed like it was a bone that they threw to the leaders of the world so they don't get too angry about all the other stuff going on. What could you give us as a brief summary of the GGLN here?
The GGLN was set up after a lot of the different nations started to find out about the secret space program, or part of the secret space program, and they were threatening to make it public. So what the powers that be did is they created an entirely different space program that was set up. It's all about developing new technologies and exploration. So, and this group operates almost completely outside of the solar system as well. That was part of the deal. They did not want them seeing what was going on here, or they didn't want any crossover.
And you got to visit their base at one point, right?
One of their bases, yes, yeah.
And you said people had flags on their uniforms?
It was very similar to Stargate Atlantis. There were people walking around with different. I remember seeing there were several Eastern European nation flags, and these people were walking around just like on Stargate Atlantis. They were relaxed. They were, some of them were going outside of where I arrived. There was a kind of a glowing pool, and they were having R&R. They were going in and dipping into the pool, and they seemed very well adjusted and happy.
But they don't know about things like the ICC, right? They're not aware that there's a business going on.
So they're aware that there's a control structure, but they're not privy to all the details. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have a military faction, and what are they doing, and how does it plug in with the other factions we've seen?
Well, part of that is the military industrial complex, SSP.
Okay.
And there are a number of a lot of people really don't understand the difference between the Air Force and the programs that they have going on, which I had been calling the Lower Secret Space Program, which David has now changed to the MIC, Military Industrial Complex.
We don't want to call somebody lower. That's not going to really curry favor.
But, it is lower technology. It is not they have space stations that are maybe 50, 100 years ahead of the International Space Station. They rotate, create like 1/3 gravity. They're made out of repurposed fuselages and stages of rockets that were used to launch other payloads up. So it's not a super high-tech secret space program, although they've been briefed and told that they're at the top of the pyramid and there's nothing above them. And
We got
it's
a
the same
niche
with all of them.
We're going to talk a little bit about more on them because they've become one of the alliance groups. And then we have the Dark Fleet, which we already got into.
Actually, the alliance is made up of people that have broken away from all these groups.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have scout groups, which was another insider told us that there's some smaller things that are done that are not really part of these other 4, but they are 5.
Right, there are all types of off-the-books type programs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that Corey found out in the course of his work, and remember, he's truly unique in the sense of being a whistleblower who actually was out there in a spaceship and managed to come back to Earth, recover his memories, and come forward as an insider. And he validated what so many other people had told me. And so he's actually out there flying around and remembered everything. And one of the things you said, Corey, is that these different space programs, they already have over 100 colonies in our solar system. And we have some art coming up in a minute, but what are some of these colonies like? What are we seeing?
Well, the ones that are owned by the ICC, they are very sprawling. They have everything. They have areas to where they take raw materials, smelt them, break them down, create the raw materials to be put into whatever they're building or manufacturing. Then they have manufacturing plants. They have the actual the part of the colony where everyone resides. It's just imagine any type of industrial program down here. It's pretty much mirrored up there.
And we got some great art coming up, and I don't want to run too far out on that. So, as he just said, there's mining facilities, and they have the living quarters fairly nearby. And you said that there's these truck kind of ships that they use sometimes to move?
Yeah, they're very, for mining mostly.
Right.
Very large, look like giant containers that you would see on a ship. But they look kind of like big rigs, strangely enough.
But without wheels, yeah.
Yeah, without wheels. But yeah, those I've seen those several times, and they're usually transferring things back and forth from the mining operations.
And so the mining could be occurring on any number of moons or asteroids in our solar system.
Correct. It's happening on almost all of them because they all have unique properties.
Interesting. All right, so we also know that there are multiple gigantic manufacturing plants just on the planet Mars alone.
There's one less now.
This one, yeah, after the Mars atrocity. So given that we showed people earlier in this talk the face on Mars, the pyramids on Mars, that stuff's obviously really old. Total Recall, very strange movie, right? They go in, and if you miss it, you don't see that at the end when Arnold puts his hand into this thing and all the cores go into the ice and melt that ice to create atmosphere for Mars, all the water comes shooting up out of a pyramid. So what do you think? Why? There's a couple questions I have, but first of all, if those pyramids are still there and Viking photographed them, have we gone back inside? Have we seen what's in there? Can we use it? What's going on with the face on Mars, the pyramids?
Well, most of what is on Mars is completely destroyed. You'll see. I mean, it looks like what is it? Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu or
place where
Pumapunku?
Pumapunku,
yeah,
where all the stones are just strewn about.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll see like a corner of a block sticking up, and it'll look like a pyramid. It's destroyed. It's all
so
destroyed.
There's really nothing to go in and look at when you go in there.
Well, whatever has been, they have people that come, or not people, but non-terrestrials usually that come and pick through all of
Okay.
all of that and take what is useful. But yeah, we've found some things that we've removed from these locations.
So you can imagine now, I mean, it's got to be frustrating. It's frustrating for me, right? Hearing all this stuff and going, why the F are we not being allowed to see all this great stuff? Why are we being kept in the dark down here? You saw the stuff on Mars. You really think that that's a trick of light and shadow? You really think that those towers on the moon were just because, oh, well, yeah, the camera screwed up? No, this stuff is real. And that's why I wanted to start with some really hard data, because Corey is not alone. We've been hoping that new insiders were going to come forward to corroborate this. We've got people that are starting to want to come forward now. We're getting more testimony, and it all crosses together. There's no way that all these people could be lying about this with all the data in the Law of One and all the provable things that we know. And so this is a really rare and amazing opportunity for us to learn about something that is so much beyond, and I don't want to insult anybody, but you all know, if you've been to UFO conferences maybe even as little as 5 years ago, Roswell again? You know, right, the saucer, look, it's metallic. Oh my God. Come on, we're done with that. We got to actually figure out why are there so many different types of UFOs? Why do they all look different? And what Corey's revealing to us is, he said, if you didn't catch that, it's very important. Our people in the military-industrial complex space program, the greater one, of course, which is not really the military-industrial complex anymore, it's like a breakaway group, they're working with 900 different civilizations, and that's, as they told you, right, that's the ones that they're really trading with the most. And yes, there are others as well, right?
They were actively trading with over 900 non-terrestrial groups.
But then there's other groups that are kind of sometimes trading with them as well, right?
Yeah, they're sort of like nomadic almost groups, and they make it around to our area, and then we trade.
So this was the first of the images that Corey came up with. This is a line art illustration of the original concept art for his new graphic novel, which is now this. And this is a big new thing. So Corey, what do you want to say about the Sphere Being Alliance?
I was approached by Tier Air, and he stated that we're doing really good work, but when it comes down to it, we're preaching to the choir. We need to reach outside of the esoteric community, if you want to call it that, and begin to plant seeds of this information into other communities. You know, the sci-fi community, the graphic novel community, all of these people, they have a lot of crossover with this community. Their minds are primed for the seed to be, they have fertile minds ready for the seed to be planted. And from the beginning, Tier Air told me it doesn't matter, or when I would tell him no one's going to believe me, and he would tell me it's of no consequence. And I would shake my head. It's a little bit of a consequence to me. But, you know, and the fact that we've done all these episodes of Cosmic Disclosure to back up my information, and people are wondering why now I'm sharing it in a sci-fi sort of format. And it is to spread this information, especially the Blue Avian message, to the masses as much as possible.
All right. So, given that we were talking about your experience with the ICC and the 900 groups, this is one of a series of slides we put together from what you got that actually shows how you got there. So, what are we looking at here? What was this?
This is a rendition of the craft that we arrived in. It
arrived where?
To the Mars facility.
Okay.
So it looked a little bit different than that, but that's the one where I described being taken with Gonzalez and one of the ICC bigwigs, and we went to a Mars facility to do an inspection. And the inspection was for them to prove to us that they weren't using slave labor. But they wanted to take us to several bases that were known about, and we had intel about a base that we weren't supposed to know about, and we asked to go there, and we verified that slave labor was being used.
And that's what we have here. So this is you sitting inside the ship, correct? And
Yes.
looking at a map of Mars?
Yes, it's like a big screen smart glass pad.
And I remember you telling me that the ICC representative who's trying to come up clean with your Secret Space Program Alliance folks, who now seem to have the upper hand, thanks to the Blue Avians, which we'll get into that in a minute, they said, hey, yeah, just go to any one of these bases on this map. And then what did Gonzalez end up saying?
All of a sudden, new points on the map started showing up, and he said, we want to go there. And it turned out that one of the defectors from one of the secret space programs that joined the SSP Alliance was from there. Now, what I hadn't told about that situation in the past, if people remember, we were going to bring back a family with us for them to be interviewed. This family was this guy's family, this defector's family.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That I did not know. Okay, now this looks very cool, very interesting. Is this, what are we seeing now?
This is a rendition of how I described, and we flew down into, looked like almost an ancient river system, curving sort of, I guess, mountains. And then we flew right in to an opening in a mountain that is somewhat similar to this. And then that's when we landed our craft and were escorted into the facility where we began our tour.
And don't forget that as we're live streaming this, all of this video feed is going directly into the live stream computer. So you're going to see versions of these slides on the live stream that you can order that are going to look a lot better than what we're seeing on the screen here. So just bear that in mind. Okay, now here, this is more like some line art. What is there any difference? That kind of on the left there looks like the same as the other one.
Yes. The one on the left is closest, but there is also what we don't have depicted, a tower that rose in and out, almost like a piston that would push out, and it was like an air traffic control tower.
Right. And so I remember you telling this on the show that like when you flew close, this thing kind of popped up and allowed you to get in.
Well, it popped up as we were approaching.
Right.
And then I assume that it went all the way back down after we went in the port below it.
Okay. So now finally at 9:25, we're going to get into the 5 factions, which is what you supposedly came here for. But you see how much setup it took to get there. And this is all very valuable stuff. So this is where things get really interesting. We're going to start with the one that Corey got introduced to first. As you've heard his story before, I'm sure all of you have. If not, go watch Cosmic Disclosure. We have a nice opening intro that you can see for free on blueavians.com, as he said, BLUEAVIANS.com. You can watch it free of charge. Don't have to sign up or anything. It had a huge number of views online. And he had done these programs in the space program, like we said, going and visiting these colonies. And then he gets pulled back in starting on February 27th, 2015, only really about 3 months after we started to talk regularly. And he started to reveal all of his information to me. These Blue Avians, which he hadn't, you had had them contact you at home. That's one of your testimonials. And I remember you wouldn't even tell me about it.
No.
It was very personal, private to you. You wouldn't say a word about it.
Well, for a couple of reasons. When I first got contacted by the Blue Avians, I was concerned because I'd been in all these projects. I'd known about hundreds of different non-terrestrials. Not once have I heard about an 8-foot-tall blue bird. Not once. So, yeah, I was a little concerned. And I definitely was not wanting to go around telling people I was talking to an 8-foot-tall bird, you know, especially when I was just starting to get to know him.
Well, I can take anything. I mean, it's just, pour me 3 of those, bartender. Whew. Blue bird, got it. Aliens.
Just don't drink it at the airport.
Exactly. Then, very shortly after they asked this Secret Space Program Alliance, they said, go get this man. His name is Corey Goode. About 3 days later, 3 days later, I forget whether it was 28 or 29 days in 2015 or February, but you actually got, well, I say teleported, but that was wrong. It was a transport, right? That was when you had the Dark craft.
Right.
To this Lunar Operations Command. Now, this is brand new. World debut. You guys are seeing stuff nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, it's part of the graphic
You might
novel,
need the
too.
live stream to really get a good view if you're way in the back, but this is what, Corey? What are we looking at right now?
This is the dart, what I sometimes accidentally call a Dodge dart. But it fits 2 crew in the front, and then in the back there are 3 seats. Not a lot of room for cargo. It's just a transport. This was what was sent to my backyard to pick me up, to take me to several different places, but on this occasion to the Lunar Operation Command.
So this is, you said 2 seats in the front, 3 in the back?
Correct.
And you mentioned before that a lot of people are getting picked up and they don't even know it because they're getting blank slated.
Well, these people that came up with me during that time period were not blank slated.
Okay.
They came. They're back here on Earth. I don't know what their mandate is.
But you said this is really not much bigger than like a van, right? It's
about the size of a car.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said it kind of flutters a little bit when you step on it as
Right.
you walk
Yeah,
up.
the
into
doors would pop up, and when I'd step in it, it would go down and slide a little. Like.
Okay, and also I was just kind of digging for. We mentioned this Dark Fleet thing before, and that a lot of people are getting brought up to facilities like on the moon, but they don't remember it, and this is far more prevalent than we realize. Are ships like this some of the ways that people are getting brought up there? Or maybe somewhat similar to this?
Probably similar. The Dark Fleet uses different methods. The different groups use different methods, but this was one of their quick transports that they used for picking up people quickly and bringing them quickly.
And it looks silvery, but does it also kind of have a stealth type of thing? Could it look dark, black?
It is the black grayish look that stealth craft has.
Okay. Now, here's another world debut. You guys are really lucky. I only just got to see this moments before you are. It's really amazing. Is this, Corey, a semi-accurate, at least, depiction of what you ended up seeing when you got up to this Lunar Operations Command, or LOC?
No, this is actually one of the first, I guess, goes at creating the briefing room that I was in at the Lunar Operation Command.
Okay.
It was very much like what you would see at a college campus. Very, very similar. So this is, I guess, more of a stylized view that we've sort of corrected since then.
Okay. And then we have this.
Yes, this was when I was brought up to the front by Gonzalez, who I didn't know who he was at the time, but he brought me up, told me to stand at the front, where I immediately began to get heckled by the people in the audience. I had a NASA hat on, and one of them told me, remove that ridiculous cover. So I took it and flipped it off to the side, and then another one started hassling me. My daughter had painted a dinosaur on my hand, and they were wondering why I had a reptilian on my hand. So I was getting, and no one had told me why I was there, what I was going to do, and I'm right at the front of the stage. I'm completely introverted, not happy at all. And these guys they're all like murmuring amongst themselves and give me a little bit of crap, and then all of a sudden the whole room gets quiet. People sit up straight, and they're not looking at me anymore. So I turn around and I look, and standing behind me are Tier Air and then the Golden Triangle headed being.
And that's just a colloquial term. We don't know what else to call it, right?
Well,
so it's the Golden Triangle head being.
We can't pronounce. We cannot pronounce what they're called.
Oh, really?
It's a sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, so this becomes the second of our alliance groups, because first of all, we're going to talk about what the SSP Alliance is about. So let's do that really briefly. These guys are not wanting to keep this all secret from us, right? This meeting that you got brought to wasn't about keeping secrecy. It was about disclosure.
Absolutely. The mandate of the SSP Alliance has been, it is time to disseminate all of these advanced technologies, but disseminate it in a way to where all of humanity is exposed to it at the same time, not just a small group of privileged. This is their mandate. They want full disclosure. The SSP Alliance is probably the only group out there right now that's still rooting for full disclosure.
And I think we're going to get it. I think we're going to get it. Okay, so the Sphere Being Alliance ties back into a bunch of actually visible things, and I did it last year. We're only going to do a couple now, because people always complain, oh my God, you repeated information. But what started to happen in the late 1990s is that these gigantic planet-sized objects were seen around the sun, in some cases flying into the sun. Here's an example of 2 planet-sized objects colliding with the sun, and NASA says it's a complete coincidence that these things collide with the sun, and then the sun has an emission. And we're not doing that. No semen jokes or anything like that. Okay.
He tells the joke without telling the joke. I'm not going to tell you how stupid you are. It's the same kind of thing.
Oh, they already know. They already know. Look at this. This is an animated GIF file of 2 gigantic objects. It's fast, but you can see these 2 things go crash into the sun, and the sun belches out this huge blast of light and fire. And NASA says, oh, those 2 events are completely unrelated. Okay, now what do they try to do? They try to say, oh, well, these are just a couple of comets. Okay, well, I don't think so. But anyway, here's one of the ones that's really stunning, and there's a bunch of these, and in the future we're going to present them all much more streamlined. We're getting to that. July 31st, 2002. If you look carefully, what you see here, this is there's 2 white flecks. It's going to be hard to see this from the audience, but if you're on the live stream or you order it at home, you can see this. You see there's a white spot on the left and a white spot over on the right. Now, the white spot over on the right is a planet-sized object that is not supposed to be there. The one on the left is Mars. The one on the right is what this guy, Kent Stedman on cyberspaceorbit.com, he's now deceased. He was the guy following this. He was calling them sun cruisers. Now, you'll notice there's a white line through the middle of it. That is because it's so bright, it's overloading what's called the CCD sensor on the SOHO satellite that took this picture. There is no actual line around this thing. It is just a gigantic planet-sized object. And these things are flying around the sun. Now look at this. The very next day, August 1st, 2002, remember, because it was July 31st, now it's August 1st, we go back, and there's Mars parked in the exact same position, and the planet-sized object on the other side is totally missing. And then a lot of times, this would happen. The SOHO would capture these, and then there's an accident. The sensor breaks down. Oop, we got to take it offline. So, Corey, there it is. I got to stop doing that, man. Damn. Okay, so there it is. July 31st, you can see the little white dot on the right, and I'm going to hit it again, and boom, the very next day it's gone, but Mars is parked right where it always was. And there it is again on the right, and notice where Mars is on the left here. It doesn't even move when I hit the button, but this other object disappears completely. Okay, so you were one of the ones that informed me that people were aware of these things, besides just guys on the internet saying, oh, it's a big spaceship around the sun. What was the view on the inside when these giant spheres started to show up?
Originally, when the spheres started to show up, there was a lot of excitement. They thought it was the return of the Sumerian gods and the people that they were very willing to worship and work with. But these spheres came into the solar system, parked, then cloaked, and then didn't answer any hails, any communications. So immediately,
how many spheres?
in the beginning, it was like 100, and then they just kept on pouring in and pouring in. And they could tell that they were lining up equidistantly all throughout the solar system. So military-minded people are thinking, this is an invasion. Maybe we should attack them.
Let's get ahead to that slide because we have that here. That was one of the original art things that you commissioned.
Yeah, it's really old.
Yep. So the cool part is that when you actually get brought up there, some of what starts to happen is that you're getting these spheres actually showing up in your house. And tell us how that transport system worked. What was the experience that you had?
It is a blue sphere will appear in my house, an orb, and it'll zigzag around almost like a ping pong ball bouncing around until I indicate that I'm ready for transport. Usually I have to take off like my electronic watch. I can't bring any electronics. So I prepare, and then I indicate that I'm ready. I put on clothes. There are many of the times I've told the stories about going different places, but I don't talk about my hair sticking straight up. And so I indicate that I'm ready to go. All of a sudden, the sphere just changes sizes to where it encompasses my body. And once I'm inside of it, it's just it's almost like a blur or a smear. It happens so quickly. And then I'm at the location.
And so this is not how most people are getting around in the space program. This is a very unusual thing.
Extremely unusual. Yes.
All right, so the Blue Avians finally reveal themselves after all these years of the spheres not saying who they are, not responding to hailing signals. Then the Alliance in the secret space program finds out about these guys, and they ask for you by name.
Right. The Blue Avians around 2011 started contacting both Gonzalez and I through dreams, which they have a protocol. They follow this protocol religiously almost.
Right.
So, yeah, I was getting that contact. They were sort of nurturing a relationship with me. They were doing the same thing with Gonzalez. And while they were communicating with him, he reported it to the SSP Alliance, who wanted more information, of course. But what had occurred is they had gone to Gonzalez, the Blue Avians went to Gonzalez and stated that they wanted a certain person by name who he didn't know who I was. After that, they looked into my background. They found a lot of the SSP information. A lot of it was redacted, which is not supposed to be possible. So they really wanted Gonzalez to be the ambassador, someone military, someone they can control. But instead, I was chosen. And I had no idea that he was in contact with the Blue Avians, and he had no idea that anyone else was in contact.
Right, and so the Blue Avians at this point, it was already well known that I had the show on Gaia and that we were actively looking for insiders who wanted to come forward. And this only happened to you right after you actually did use your real name and go public.
That's a nice way to put it.
Even though it wasn't something you wanted.
Right. I was sort of outed unceremoniously, but yeah.
But do you think that you coming forward with your real face, your real name, your real identity was part of the cosmic handshake that had to take place in order to allow this contact to occur?
I guess it showed commitment, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so this is what you actually saw. And if you haven't seen this before, this is the art that we got from Andrew Jones, which was then turned into 3D.
Yeah, that was turned into 3D by someone else. Yeah.
And I was there as we constructed this, and it was very emotionally powerful for me. I actually broke into tears as this image was appearing.
It moved a number of people in the room.
Yeah, it was very intense, actually, when this was happening. And so we're seeing a being that looks pretty human-like, but it's got small, fine feathers all over its body, right? That's part of, if we're correctly interpreting what we're looking at here, there's sort of these shiny purplish blue feathers and then longer feathers that kind of act as hair, a very punk kind of hairdo.
Right.
New age, new wave. So then we have the golden triangle head beings, which have some unpronounceable name. Could you try to pronounce it? Or is it not even possible? I thought you went like or something like that. Wasn't that what?
It's something really weird. It's kind of almost like a screech and a. It's weird.
So here's what they look like. Now, how tall was this guy?
10 feet.
So he's even taller than Blue Avian, because the Blue Avian you said is 8 feet.
Yes, and it looks like they're either there's a mirage in front of them or they're underwater. They move very fluid-like, and they don't look like they have bones. I mean, kind of like an octopus. And then their toes and fingers, they have 3, and they stand up on their toes like a tripod. And then their toes do this, and they kind of go up and down. It's very strange. Very strange.
Okay, now one of the first questions that the SSP Alliance asked the Blue Avian was what?
Are you the Ra from the Law of One?
And what was, he said, are you the Ra from the Law of One? And what was their answer?
Tyr just had me answer back, I am Rao Tyr.
Ra like Ra.
Ra, yeah, they pronounce it Rao.
Okay.
Wow. Which may be the way the original word was.
Yeah, we probably got it messed up. Which we mess up everything on this planet, right? That's part of the game. Now, what's interesting about that, and it's kind of like their free will chess game, is that every time they're asked a question in the Law of One, their answer starts with, I am Ra.
Correct.
So it very much looked like that's what was going on. Now, I was really suspecting that this was the same Ra as the Law of One. And at home, shortly after this happened to you, I was in my kitchen. You might have heard this story before. If not, I want to get it on record. I'm in my kitchen, and I say, are these Blue Avians, in fact, the group that did the Law of One? Because it sure looks like it. And I asked the question telepathically, which is something we're going to get into tomorrow. For the first time, I'm actually going to talk about this. I've been doing this conference 12 years. I haven't talked about this stuff in 10 years. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow night. I'm finally coming out of the cosmic closet, okay, which is a lot worse than being gay. Being gay is not even a big deal anymore, which I'm not, okay, but everybody thinks I'm gay on the internet. Apparently the military does too. That's fine, okay, but saying that you can channel higher beings of consciousness...
I think thou protest too much.
We're not going there. This could get into a big, big thing. So I had this experience of doing psychic readings, and I actually ran a business from 1998 to 2005 with 500 paying clients, people bursting into tears. I'm speaking on behalf of higher beings of consciousness, telling people things that predicted the future. There was one lady who had all these poems that she'd written. They actually started to quote from her poems, which I didn't even know she wrote poems. Not only did they quote from the poems, but they explained to her what they meant. So this was an experience I had. That's not you. Okay, I was like, uh-oh. If he's doing that, I'm dying on stage, right? They quoted from her frickin' poems, and this didn't just happen once or twice. This happened a lot. And so, of course, when I'm on the George Norrie panel tomorrow at 2 o'clock, he's obviously going to bring up, so, Edgar Casey, right? Oh, man, really? You going to do that again? Every frickin' time. Yes, I'm going to show you again tomorrow night the facial similarity of myself and Edgar Casey because it's time. So many people don't want me to talk about this that Corey didn't even know about it. Believe it or not, when we actually did our last taping, I sat him down, I explained to him this whole Casey thing, and he hadn't even heard it before because I've totally avoided talking about it. So I was in the kitchen, and I still can get access. It's not as much as I used to do. I had some very bad things happening in my life, and I didn't dare try to do this because you have to have a really sacred consciousness or it's not going to work. You're going to get the wrong channel. And I did not want that. So basically, after about 2005, I pretty much discontinued it because my life started to get really intense. And I didn't want to try my fate with the wrong side of the fence. But I can still get little things, and I'm trying to build it back to the point where I have the right consciousness to do it properly again. So I'm in the kitchen, and I say, okay, are you guys the Ra from the Law of One? And I wait, and I listen, I meditate, I get deep, and I hear 3 words. Go outside now. You didn't answer the question. Are you the Ra from the Law of One? Go outside now.
Sounds like a text you got from me at Contact in the Desert.
That's similar, yeah. 3rd time, are you the Ra from the Law? Go outside now. Okay, freaking fine, I'll go outside. Walk out the front, and I filmed this, and at some point I'm going to use the film. There is this huge freaking rainbow in the valley. This big, full arc rainbow. And then another time later on, when I asked the same question again, and I'm on a walk, boom, I turn the corner and there's another big rainbow. And then Corey and I were talking about this. Remember this? We were at a restaurant. I'm not going to say which one. We're at a restaurant in Boulder because it's like product placement if I give the restaurant name. We don't need to give them free publicity. But and we're talking about the same thing, and we freaking walk outside and there's a double rainbow again. So it's happened 3 times.
I was quite amused at the people around's reaction when you started jumping up and down. A rainbow, a rainbow.
Double rainbow, dude.
Yeah, interesting looks.
Oh my
even in Boulder.
God.
Yeah, one guy asked you, is that your God?
That's right, he did.
Yeah.
He did. That was funny. And remember there was a little girl in the restaurant that started, oh, the bird, the bird. Yeah. That was another really weird synchronicity. We get these weird synchronicities, and so I asked the question, and they say, go outside now, which seems like the rainbow's the answer, and the answer is yes. But again, it's like this weird thing where they don't really say it.
Never a direct answer.
But eventually, they did tell you flat out, yes, we wrote the Law of One. And that's a huge development for me, because it explains, okay, yes, they're the group, they're the ancient builder race. Law of One says they started on Venus 2.6 billion years ago. They built all these pyramids everywhere. They took off. They ascended. But now they become what's called the guardians, right? And they've come back in these giant spheres. So when these guys in the SSP Alliance were asking them, why did you come in these giant spheres? What's the purpose of this? What was their answer?
To attenuate the energies that are coming from through the cosmic web, through our sun.
Right.
Because we wouldn't be able to handle it in our current state.
Attenuate means to kind of like control it and modulate it so it doesn't happen too much at once.
Right.
If they didn't use these spheres, and we're talking about the Mayan calendar end date, of course you guys all know 2012 was a big flop. But look, the science was so good that I was going forward with this year after year leading up to 2012.
2012 was not a big flop. What was supposed to happen happened. We were just all wrong.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's also during the time that the sphere started coming in mass into the solar system. So, you know, a lot occurred in 2012.
All right. I'm trying to be respectful of time here, so we got the Golden Triangle head beings. It's very much like what happens with the Law of One. It's all very congruent, this idea of ascension. I'm going to get way more into that tomorrow and on the Monday workshop. It's a huge subject about this idea that the sun's going to do a flash. And Corey, you have still heard that there is going to be some sort of solar event that has a transformative effect on consciousness, but the date range now is more like 2018 to 2023. Is that still true?
2024.
2024.
Yeah,
okay.
they added a year.
So, look, all this stuff, if you've seen my scholarship, we have extensive documentation of so many ancient cultures predicting the sun is going to do something huge. and that it transforms the very essence of what it means to be human. It totally ties in with the idea of the Tibetan rainbow body. There's 160,000 documented cases, as I always say, of people meditating for 12 or 13 years. If you can only have loving thoughts for 13 years, then you get to ascend anytime you want, which is very difficult. It took me 2 hours to get here in the traffic today in the rain. So we start the clock today. And we'll probably start the clock again tomorrow and start it again the next day. Who are these inner earth beings, Corey? Are they third density beings or what?
They're fourth density. They're fourth density beings.
And this graphic we had a while back is of a ship that looks more like one of the German ones, I guess, and they got these outfits on. Are these some of the inner earth beings?
It's Maria Orsic.
That's Maria Orsic, okay.
Yeah, that's supposed to be a vril symbol behind her, but it's a Order of the Black Sun symbol that we need to switch out.
So this was some of the German groups that actually had that original technology that developed in the late 1930s and was the seed of the original space program because they got a technological cooperation with the Draco.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm about to ask you to do something that's going to stretch your talents as an orator. Do you think you can possibly talk for a couple of minutes when I escape and run to the facility?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know it'll be
it's
very
really hard, right?
for you to
it's
come
really
up
hard.
with something to say, but I'll be right back.
Okay. Let's get back to the solar flash for a moment because that's a really huge subject, and we'll make sure Corey's taken care of on the way there. Okay, let's talk about some of the prophecies of this because I don't want to gloss over this, and I'm also being respectful of time. I think they always do allow us to run a little bit over, but we also now have very loud music next door, which makes it harder to talk up here. So this solar flash thing, it really, to me, is the ultimate core of what this is all leading towards, and it can't be emphasized enough. If you didn't really catch that, because it's we didn't really express it as well as we could have, that these giant spheres, of which there are hundreds, okay, they go all the way up in size to the size of the planet Jupiter. They're enormous. They are positioned geometrically throughout our solar system, and Corey on many occasions has witnessed that they are literally throttling energy from the sun. They get brighter and dimmer to try to stop the sun from doing this solar flash too fast. Now, we have a whole bunch of really interesting prophecies. This is kind of some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tomorrow and again on Monday in the Ascension Geometry talk. But let's just do some of this for a moment. The Hindus have a prophecy of what they call the Samavartika fire at the end of an age. They talk about that the sun gives off this huge, blinding white light flash. And they say that when this happens, it's akin to a massive transformation of the whole planet as we know it. Everything about being human, everything about life on Earth, it all changes. One of the weird things is that in the Mahabharata, one of the classic Vedic sacred texts, it describes rainbow colors in the sky that occur when this takes place. And that didn't really jive with the idea of a white flash from the sun. Incidentally, while Corey was talking with these inner Earth people we're about to see, he was told at one point, he was actually shown a vision. This is when he went to the Venus base, actually, and then after that he got a very serious vision of the solar flash. That when the sun does its flash, the Earth has Aurora Borealis on an amazing level. Worldwide Aurora Borealis that is so colorful that it's literally like rainbow colors in the sky. And I said, my God, it's like the Earth's rainbow body activation. Right? Isn't that amazing? Or massive Aurora Borealis. And another thing that's totally freaking crazy is all the way back in the Fatima sightings in Portugal, you had a silvery disc show up on the 13th of the month for almost a year, every month, with these 3 kids in Portugal. and a silvery disc appeared the last 2 or 3 times, and it would be up there in the sky, and it would give off this enormous corona of rainbow light that covered the entire sky. And then it appeared to be the sun. It would go behind the sun, blank out everybody so they can't see anything, and then it would come zigzagging down like it was going to crash into the earth. And people were screaming. And it was raining as this happened, and then when the thing went away, the rain had stopped, and by some weird technology, everybody's skin was completely dry. This happened in front of 90,000 witnesses in Portugal. I guess it was in the year 1913, if I got that right. Right as Portugal entered World War I. So to me, and I'm spoiling what's going to be in the next book that I'm writing later on, but a little bit of it, that this Fatima sighting was one of the things that they gave you the third secret of Fatima. You ever study this? Oh my God, what's the third secret of Fatima? Remember the Vatican hid the third secret? It goes ... and you're like, damn, what is it? I believe that the third secret, the beings knew that the Vatican was going to hide the third secret, and they showed you the third secret in a symbolic, dreamlike way. Rainbow colors in the sky, and the sun seems to be crashing down, but then everything's fine. And all the water, which represents in dreams sadness and emotion, all the water is gone, the rain stops, and everybody's dry and happy. Now, imagine if something like that happened now, 90,000 witnesses with their smartphones. Game over. It's disclosure. It only happened 100 years ago. So that is another one of so many examples of this solar flash prophecy. You see it in Zoroastrianism, where they call it phrasokererti, that the sun gives off this energy like molten metal, and that if you are one of the just, meaning if you're a loving, positive person, you get transformed by it, but they also say the wicked are consumed by it. Shortly before Corey was contacted, this weird boundary showed up around our solar system that prevents all these beings from getting out, and they really don't like that. And wouldn't you agree, Corey, that they're worried about this solar flash and what it's going to do to them when it happens?
Yes, they plan to be gone before the solar flash occurs.
Okay, so getting back to the Law of One stuff now, and we had Semjazi, Billy Meyer. That appears to have been Maria Orsich, as you had told us, and this was the craft. There's Maria Orsich. She was one of the people that helped to channel the plans and set up the original Draco meeting. I don't think she realized what they were going to meet when they got there. In the Himalayas, apparently where it happened. You end up, after we'd already been doing this and we already had the show come out, you end up getting brought down here. So we probably could still go another 20 minutes without anybody getting angry in the least bit. So we want to get through these alliance groups. So what happened here? Where were you and what was going on when you saw this?
I was brought down to the inner earth for the first time. Up until then, they were just sort of a rumor that I had read on the smart glass pad. We knew that there were a lot of these groups that were approaching people all over the world, a lot of them claiming to be from other planets, other star systems, when really they were from below our feet. They were telling us that for operational security reasons. But this scene right here, soon after I appeared, I was walked into this room to where I was to bathe in the pool and go through a cleansing ceremony. And we've gone several times into how embarrassing that was.
I won't have fun with you on that again. I've already done it.
Yeah. I was about 60 pounds heavier. It was not fun being around a bunch of tall, skinny, obvious vegan type people. With
very trippy eyes, right?
Yeah.
As we can see here. So these were, as you said, the sentinels that were at the doorway.
Right.
And you end up going through the doorway, and then you meet this wonderful lady.
Yes, Kari.
And describe for us what happens when she touches your hands and how that changed you as a person.
It was surreal. She leaned over and put her hands out, and as did I. She asked me to take her hands. And then when we did, it was like part of my essence was pulled to in between us. Hers was as well, and then it sort of blended. And I had access to memories of her when she was young. But what she was doing, she was trying to get information hidden in me. And she was digging through my youth all the way up. And as she was going through my youth, I was in a parallel way seeing her youth, she's about 130 years old at her current state. They live way longer than that. So,
and they told you they're fourth density, right?
Yes, they're fourth density. And, she gleaned a lot about me, and I gleaned quite a bit about her, although it was pretty hard to fourth density mind. It's really hard for us to really kind of fathom it. We think so incredibly different. It's like you and your dog trying to have a conversation. They're just way beyond us.
And shortly after this happened to you, we are at the Boulderado, and you eat the Caesar salad.
Right.
It all went downhill from there.
Yeah, they've been working on me for a long time about getting on a high vibe diet, practice what you're preaching, basically. And instead, I was sitting there, eating corn dogs, processed meat, all kinds of nastiness. And I was refusing to switch over, so they gave me a little bit of. She's told me more about some learning opportunities.
The opportunity, of course.
Yeah, that was an opportunity to her, but to me, I got food poisoning, and it was the last time I ate anything that had meat in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense, and we were trying to do a shoot, and Corey's literally like, you were popping Imodium ADs like Pez. And that ended up blocking your peristalsis, and Gaia has this really cool clinic next door. If you end up working out there, you can go to it. It's called Radiance Health. And you went in there and you got like special treatment. One of the things we figured out is you had like no electrolytes.
Right.
So you had no energy because you weren't eating or drinking anything, and the water was flushing out all your electrolytes.
Yeah. I don't think anyone, speaker or guest at Gaia, would ever attempt to do a show in the condition I was in.
Oh. And yet you got through it, and I mean, some of those episodes didn't make it into being broadcast, but some of them did.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing that you were able to work under those conditions. Then there was other times where you like bit on something and had a broken tooth, and I mean, we've just had one crazy thing after another. One of the things you got to realize about this is people might walk up to me or to Corey and say, "Oh, I want to be like you." Well, there's a great deal of work and sacrifice, and there's a great deal of karma. Because when you're on the front lines like this, you have to be so precisely accountable for everything you think, say, and do that you step a little bit out of line and you can get a really big blowback. And Corey, you've said that this is one of the things that a lot of it you don't ever want to really talk about, but you get all these personal advisories from the beings, and it's very unflattering, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's... if I don't shine the light in a dark place that I haven't shined, they do it for me. And we have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
A very uncomfortable conversation.
And my own experience with dreams and all this stuff that was happening to me for so long, same thing. Dreams can be extremely unflattering. And I was constantly like amazed at how hard they wanted me to work. Because all this normal stuff that people have of like work until 5 or 6 p.m. and then just watch TV, they're like, we don't even want you to turn the frickin' thing on. We want you to be like working all day. And we want you to be very disciplined and have your consciousness focused. And it's just amazing how accountable you have to be. So I believe this is like the SEAL team. You guys are really, as these changes that we're talking about with the sun and all this start to happen, you guys are hearing this before like the whole world is going to hear about this. Okay, so think about that. You're not just somebody watching this show. You are a participant in Ascension. We're like Morpheus up here and you're Neo. It's true. So I want you to really kind of grok that and soak in this, that what seems to be happening to Corey is that he is what we would call the harbinger. He's the front runner. He is the first guy to break out of this very, very tightly controlled system where they don't ever usually let people come back to Earth. And if you try to speak, they will just kill you on the spot. And I want to get your confirmation on this, Corey, for other whistleblowers who may be thinking about coming forward. One of the things that one of the top Cabal insiders told me is there's a law that they know about. This is the evil ones now. You cannot shoot the Red Cross workers. So people who are going to come forward, if you practice these positive spiritual disciplines, it's not like they can just pick you off.
Well, I don't know. My experience is that there's always casualties in war, and you don't necessarily have to authorize yourself getting killed in battle.
Right.
And this is a battle.
And if you look at history, there's always people who have stepped forward bravely and gone into situations that seemed impossible. And that's not anything that we can't continue to do. This is a war, it is real, but also knowing the eternity of the soul is part of what fuels people who are whistleblowers to come forward, because they realize, yes, something may happen to you, but in the grander sense, you're just getting out of the prison down here, right? And you die with honor, that's not a bad thing at all. So let's go through more of this. So Krishna, right? One of the types of beings that we hear about in the Mahabharata, because there are others. They describe reptilians in the Mahabharata too. They're called the rock. I forget.
I've got to get you the updated pictures.
Yeah, these are old ones.
Oh, they're the incorrect ones too.
Oh, they're incorrect. Okay.
They're coloring and all that. That was
wrong. Okay, but how accurate are these?
These are accurate.
Okay. So this is one of the inner Earth groups, which actually look like people from Africa. So that was one of the things I had real trouble with other insiders. Remember I told you this, Corey, that nobody wanted to say that there were black-looking people anywhere but on Earth. And it was like there's this racism inside the Cabal. They don't want black people to know that they have extraterrestrial ancestry.
Right, and you were being told that black people didn't serve.
Didn't serve in the space program.
Right, and there were people from all races that were serving. Yeah.
Very interesting. So then we found similar illustrations of these underground facilities that he saw, these underground Anshar bases, that's what they called themselves, the Inner Earth Alliance, online. We showed you this last year, but it's worth repeating. Some of these, this is stuff that we just found that looked kind of like what Corey was seeing. And then I'm going to show you some new stuff. This is one, we didn't commission this, right? This is just one that kind of looks a lot like what you saw, as we're going to see. But it was already online.
Apparently pilfered from Google.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's fair use. We have every right to do this. Okay, so, no, I believe me, I've researched copyright law like you can't imagine. So we have grottos, we have areas of water, there's caves. And then we have, this is another one that was drawn by somebody online. It's kind of hard to see. Another one from online, but you kind of get the theme here. Corey said a lot of these look similar. This is one of the early ones that we actually did commission. And so you're seeing little obelisks and little domes, and you're seeing this cigar-shaped craft up here. So would you say this is a fairly close rendition?
It sufficed for the show graphics.
Okay.
But the one that we've done,
we got it coming right now. Yeah. These are some great debuts that we're about to get to. Now, Kari took you out and showed you where they were farming their food, right? These huge crops. Yeah,
they're growing it in... The roots were in a crystal substrate that they were growing it in. It was like hydroponics.
And there's no star. It's like, I've heard from others that have seen this also, that the whole kind of dome is like just glowing, right?
Yeah, they create light using sound.
Very interesting. Then we have this, and you said they were preserving some very unique animals here, right?
Yes.
Animals that might have otherwise gone extinct on the surface of the Earth?
Right. From,
Oops.
I think they said it was from an era just prior to the last cataclysm.
Right. So that's where you get your giant sloths, mastodons, toxodons, giant turtles, saber-toothed tiger, all kinds of interesting creatures like that. And you actually heard a tiger, right? That was one of the funny things that happened.
Very close, very deep rumbling in our chest. Yeah.
And then this is where it got really crazy, because in the center of this whole area, you saw this obelisk, right? And you said there was light coming off the top.
Right, there was some sort of a artificial type sun, a plasma ball above it. Yeah.
And what was so crazy was it seemed awfully familiar. You're telling me all this before we'd even commissioned the art that you're now looking at. And I had just gotten back the cover of my book, Ascension Mysteries, where I told the publisher exactly what I wanted on the cover. And this is what I had them put on the cover. An obelisk with light coming off the top, and in the dim background, there's the image of the planet Saturn. Remember, those people were wearing Saturn pendants. The timing between these two things was literally the same day. You came back from that vision, you told me about it, and I had just gotten the email. It was within minutes, actually.
From that vision?
From your vision of that obelisk in the garden.
It wasn't a vision, it was a... I was transported there physically.
Right.
Right.
Well, a vision meaning you're seeing it, yeah.
Okay, well, most people, when they hear vision, they think it...
Right. No, you were physically there. Whereas this was something where I said, what do I want my book cover to be? And I got this flash, and that's what I saw.
You had the vision.
I had a vision, yes. Moving right along. This is some of the new stuff that we're really excited to bring you. I've used Corey told me, I want all these slides in the talk. I said, okay, cool, we'll throw them all in. So what are we looking at here?
I said 3 to 6, but... Yeah.
No, you said put them all in. Don't lie.
But these are the ones that haven't been colorized yet for the graphic novel.
This is some of the Anshar and the Inner Earth Alliance people?
Yes. Who all is going to go Sunday to our show? All the people are not raising your hands, you gotta go. This is going to be a presentation you will not forget. It's going to be
we're only
unbelievable.
scratching the surface here. There's so much new art that he's got and a whole lot of new things he's going to disclose that's never been heard before. 4 p.m. on Sunday. And what are we looking at here?
This is the Inner Earth Council. It was 7 different groups that were meeting, and this was an unprecedented meeting. Some of these groups, they don't particularly get along all that well. They're not warring or anything. They just don't care for each other. But they all got together because of what is occurring with the spheres coming in. They're calling it the Return of the Guardians, which happens to be the name of our graphic novel.
Right
But
on.
I never called them the Guardians. I never associated them with the Guardians until Kari started referring to them as so.
And you had said that this alliance formed with the people in the Inner Earth who were actually warring with each other before, because the Cabal on the surface with all their high technology was now going after them as a group and trying to wipe them out.
They had probably 3-front war going between different beings and advanced military-industrial complex ran by the Cabal that were using new weapons that could reach where they are.
So this is another new one. And you saying this probably is more accurate than some of the other ones we saw before, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're looking at some kind of flying saucer type ones. We're looking at some cigar-shaped ones. We're looking at a bunch of really cool glowing cities and pillars that kind of seem to hold the dome together so it doesn't collapse.
Egg-shaped craft.
Yeah, and then we're also seeing these spheres. What are those spheres all about? Those are the egg-shaped craft?
Yes, those are the
Okay,
egg-shaped
right.
craft, yeah.
That we talked about in our latest update on Cosmic, which I think is coming out next week,
Comes
right?
out Tuesday, yes.
Okay, so you got to see that, definitely. BlueAvians.com. If you haven't already watched it, you can sign up there, and then that way we get credit. Okay, now this is another one. This is a really amazing shot of you standing next to Kari. You're in a ceremonial robe. There's other people standing around, and you were looking at a jaw-droppingly amazing view.
Yes, I was looking at a sprawling city complex that went on for many, many, many kilometers. And it was extremely advanced. The city was extremely advanced beyond anything I'd ever seen.
So do you think that there could be potentially millions of people in these inner
Easily.
Earth populations?
There was easily 1 million people in that one area.
Right, because it looks like there's lights all up and down the pylons. So there could be people living in the entire pylon top to bottom.
Yes,
Apartments with windows.
That's without all the structures that they had created independently of hollowing out different sort of columns that were natural.
Right, so it kind of makes sense that if you have this gorgeous view, everybody wants a window, right? So maybe those pillars give everybody the chance to have some nice real estate.
Yeah, those are the condos.
All right, very good. And then this is another one that we took from a website that you're about to launch. I was right there next to you when we did it. That looks even more high-tech and outrageous than the other one.
Right, and that's getting more accurate about when it comes to the type of buildings I saw construction-wise and the advance of the technology.
Now, the Law of One describes that when the sun does its flash, and they actually talk about inner-earth civilizations, there were some people, some haters online that said, oh, the Law of One never mentioned that. And I went back and showed, no, it's here, and it's here, and it's here, and it's here. They say in the Law of One that when the sun does its thing, that one of the groups that assists in the ascension is the inner-earth civilizations. And they actually told you, right, that at times they will take groups of people and bring them down there if there needs to be temporary shelter or safety from something that happens on the surface.
Right. They've done it a number of times, but interestingly enough, an insectoid type group has done this, and the reptilians have done it too during certain times. But they were the negative groups were preserving their genetic experiments. They weren't doing it to be loving and benevolent.
So I'm going to pull the old Ancient Aliens line. Is it possible? And if so, here we go. Ready? Drum roll. Is it possible, Corey, that many of the people in this audience could end up living down there or seeing this right after the sun does its thing?
It's possible. This group is extremely paranoid of human beings. So for us to go down into their sanctuaries, that's going to have to be, I think that's going to be after there's a mutual trust developed.
But they might have stuff like this that would be for us, where we get to be by ourselves, maybe not infringing on their territory, but they've built some places that we could be.
Well, we have built places like that.
Right.
There's a huge infrastructure built by the ICC that is supposed to be turned over to humanity after they're defeated.
Right.
The whole infrastructure in the solar system is supposed to be turned over to us, and then overnight we're going to have a real Star Trek type civilization.
And considering that this solar flash, as you just said a few minutes ago, we're estimating something like this could happen between 2018 and 2024, this kind of fantastic view that you got to see as the harbinger, it's this kind of stuff that other people might actually end up seeing a lot sooner than they think as we go through this transformation.
Correct. And right after the event, the technologies that are going to be disseminated to us, we're going to be so wrapped up and excited in the technologies and the information that's being released that, you know, we're not going to be wanting to travel down there immediately. We're going to have a lot to deal with and absorb.
It's very, very interesting stuff. And then when you went into the library, you saw this hand with the crystal in it. We already did this on a Guy episode.
Right, hanging from the ceiling.
Yep. So that's on the ceiling. And then you saw these scrolls, and we now have some newer art that you just commissioned, which is this. So this library, you said, actually even has some books in it from us here on Earth.
Right. It was like going through through time. You started off with scrolls, you worked up to bound type books, you even saw different types of tablets. And when you get to the very end, you see books that could have been ordered off of Amazon.com yesterday, with the ISBN numbers on them. I have no idea how, if the drones are delivering their books down there. I have no idea how they're getting the books down there, but
one of them's got to be Linda Moulton Howe, right?
Absolutely. A library would not be complete.
Barbara Marx Hubbard, got to be down there. Absolutely. Okay. And then you saw people in these levitating egg-like chairs, and they're meditating in there. And what are they up to?
Well, several different things. They're having basically a conference call in a when they use these machines, they are brought to what were we calling the area that where Kari's bringing me at times?
Construct.
You're calling it the construct, yeah.
It's all white, but all you see is just her and yourself.
Right. They enter a construct, and then they interact with each other mentally and show each other all kinds of visuals. But they also use it to reach out to each other at long distances or to human beings on the surface of the planet. They're trying to influence us positively through belief systems, through just information they're imparting to us. If you get information and you have no idea where it came from, there's a fair chance that it came from this group.
So it's sort of like a very cool, benevolent internet.
Yeah.
Now, this is where things start to get interesting, because this military-industrial complex secret space program, they don't necessarily know about the other stuff that we've been talking about.
No, and if they happen to see a craft that's extremely advanced, they're told it's above your need to know, it's one of our concept craft.
And we are getting ready to end here, so don't worry. I know a couple people are stretching. This is one of the ones that they are getting ready to give us first as a partial disclosure, correct?
Absolutely.
They meaning the Earth Alliance, which we're going to meet in a minute.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And you've had some very, very unpleasant interactions with these people. This is your interrogation room, and we've seen this on the show. So what happened to you when you end up being seated in this chair and all this crazy shit was going on?
They were pumping me with chemicals, using strange sonic technologies on me to control my consciousness, and they ended up using those technologies to have me out 3 of the SSP Alliance major command and control people, including Gonzalez.
Right, and there was a period of time where Gonzalez was absolutely furious with you for this and thought that you could have controlled it, which I don't think you could have.
No, I couldn't have controlled it. He knew I couldn't control it. He was just triggered.
Right.
Because one of the guys died, one of them went missing, I haven't heard about it, and Gonzalez lost his cover and couldn't be on the surface of the planet anymore.
Now, one of the fascinating things, we're going to get into Antarctica tomorrow night in my talk, and I'm going to have some absolutely astonishing new testimony from Pete Peterson corroborating what Corey is telling us very nicely about Antarctica. But we have these triangular craft up there. You see they're kind of small in the distance. But the MIC group, as you've said, Corey, has now gained the ability. They've got enough technology now, probably from defectors from the Alliance, that they're actually shooting down Draco craft, which are these teardrop ones that you're seeing, if they try to escape the Earth.
That's not the MIC group.
Oh, that's not? Okay.
It's one of the groups that make up the Earth Alliance.
Okay. Interesting. So this event, why were the Draco trying to leave at this point? This was like last year around February, March time is when this was commissioned.
This is not the Draco. These
it's not? Okay.
No, these are Dark Fleet vessels.
Oh, Dark Fleet, right. The guys that work for the Draco.
Right. They decided they wanted to get off planet with everything going the way it's going. They got into 6 of these very large transport craft and were headed towards low Earth orbit when they were attacked by these dozens of other unknown craft at the time.
Right, so that's Earth Alliance, not MICSSP. That's an important distinction. So there's a close-up on these new craft, and Pete gave me all kinds of specifics that Corey hadn't said that turned out to be right about exactly how they were powered, who made them, what defense contractors, all kinds of stuff. Very interesting element of this story. Then we have this really cool thing that showed up very recently. This is one of the most recent things, tying into this mystery of the Olmecs. Now, who are the Olmecs? It was actually apparently these people. This is Ambassador Mika, and we're going to see here in just a second, I'm going to go forward, Olmec heads that look just like him, and you can see here 26 sites throughout Mesoamerica, Central America, in which, as it says here, a series of these gigantic heads, and I'm just going to show you the heads very briefly here. These heads are enormous in size, and a lot of people don't know about this. You don't see this very much, but these heads are huge, and there's at least 10 of them that are this big. And here's, so they get dug up out of the ground, and now it appears that Ambassador Mika, let's just back up a second, and we'll get back to that slide of him. How did you meet Ambassador Mika, and what is their relationship to this whole cosmic story that we're seeing?
Ambassador Mika was introduced to me by Tier Air, basically.
Right.
And Mika introduced himself as a representative who did a very similar job as what I'm being asked to do from one of the closest stars to ours. And that they were very excited about where we are and how we're about to end the control system by the Draco, which they had done 3 generations before. So they're excited that we're about to gain our freedom, and they want very much to come in and advise us and assist us.
And a very close friend of mine had an incredible dream right almost to the day that Corey got this information, that was of people who appeared to be black giving an incredible amount of information about various tactics of how to defeat these same beings that we're going to be having to go up against as we go through this transformation. Because it's not like they all just get wiped away in one big step, right? This is a battle that we have to fight.
Yeah, it's a multi-stage battle.
Right. So sure enough, these people appear to have come here before, and you had only told me this Olmec thing tonight, and I'm like, oh my gosh, of course. So did they build these stone heads after themselves, or was that something that the indigenous people were doing?
Unknown. They were here for a short period of time as refugees while things were really hot on their planet. Then things started getting hot again on this planet, reptilian-wise, and they left.
Wow. Okay. I see some people are fidgeting, and this is the last alliance group left, the Earth Alliance. And you just dropped a very interesting thing, which is that all of this stuff that we were looking at with those triangular craft, that's actually an Earth Alliance thing they now have under their control, which is capable of defeating the Draco ships, or the Dark Fleet at least.
Correct. The ICC has all of the most advanced technology, and somehow that technology got disseminated down to this Earth Alliance group.
Now, okay, so the 2016 election, obviously very contentious, and we see this Pizzagate stuff start to happen. WikiLeaks describing pedophilia and Satanism at the highest levels. And now we're seeing, and you were actually giving me some breadcrumbs, the FBI insider that just came out recently. I'm going to talk about this again in a lot more detail tomorrow night. FBI insider saying they're getting ready to file actual criminal charges against some of the highest level Illuminati/Cabal people in the U.S. government. Yes.
Yeah, they've appointed secret grand juries.
Say that again, because we couldn't hear it.
Secret grand juries have been appointed.
Yeah. This is very big stuff. I have been getting, this is something that I can say. I've been getting dream after dream after dream after dream, night after night, preparing me that the work that we've been doing, we in this community, is about to go so big that this is stuff that everybody's going to be talking about. That's why I do consider what we're doing tonight to be a historical event, and I'm so glad that you all have been here with us for this event. I've really hoped that with this slideshow that we can kind of put this all together and get into this whole thing of try to summarize Corey's story in one actual talk, which it's very hard to do that. As you can see, it's very complex. Tomorrow night I have, if you haven't already signed up for it, you probably should do it fast because we way sold out on this room and people were getting turned away. Tomorrow night's probably going to be the same deal. I'm going to get into a lot more information about this situation of Atlantis and what I'm calling the Illuminati salvage plan, even though they don't like us to use that word. Now, this is one of the things that we just grabbed, Corey, off your website. These beings are kind of tall. They have elongated skulls, and you're seeing here an ice excavation with ancient ruins inside. What is the Antarctic Atlantis? What's going on with that?
The Antarctic Atlantis, it was discovered in 1939 by the Germans, and they've been slowly excavating it for a long period of time. As we've reported, and as Tompkins also reported, the reptilians basically control Antarctica. After the last cataclysm, they moved in and took over. So this group that we're calling the pre-Adamites, they lost all access, the survivors lost all access to their technology, their cities, their libraries. All they had was what they had with them.
And these beings that are giants with the skulls are the pre-Adamites.
Right.
Meaning, and this is something that we should have said in other episodes we did on this, that they're before the biblical Adam and Eve.
Right.
Like that was some kind of extraterrestrial seeding of the new humanity, right?
Right.
And these beings were there before that.
Yes, and they are genetic engineering freaks. They immediately started mixing their DNA with the humanoid DNA here, which made other groups mad because they already had 22 different genetic experiments going on. And this group moved in and started to contaminate them, these other 22 genetic projects.
And without getting into long details here, these people are the survivors of that cataclysm that we saw from Mars and the moon earlier in our talk.
And the cataclysm seems to have happened because of their meddling in the 22 different programs.
And other years I've done this, and in fact, you can go online if you haven't already seen my YouTube video. I'm sure you all have, where I talk. It's the Ascension Mysteries video, which was actually filmed right on this stage last year, or 2 years ago, actually, because people didn't even know who you were yet. You were sitting right over there in the audience.
Yeah, I was the fat guy in the front.
We weren't that fat.
I see videos of myself from that expo. I was wow.
But right there, I'm dropping all this information. You can watch it online, get caught up on this. Giant skeletons with elongated skulls that have been found all over the world. And this is one of the big secrets, the idea, and again, we're going to talk way more about this tomorrow. The power elite believe themselves, whether we think it's true or not is irrelevant. Their religious belief firmly is that they are the hybrid human mixed descendants of these people, that they have descended from this race that actually is 500,000 years old, starting out on Mars. Would you agree with all that?
Yes, and there's zealots in that belief system.
And that makes them feel as if they are kind of like entitled to be the gods of Earth and that we're supposed to worship them and all this kind of stuff?
Yes, and most of these so-called elite really aren't blood-related. They've been led to believe that. So they will not only see themselves separate from humans, but to see themselves as the cattle herders and not have problems with the way we're treated.
So you were very excited about this idea of something going on with Antarctica, and you couldn't tell me about it, and it was driving me crazy. all these breadcrumbs. And then finally, just in not too long ago, we did Endgame 2, which went spectacularly wild on the internet. We made it into a video, like a
Still waiting for
million-
Endgame 3.
yeah. Well, that's tomorrow night. That's the first stage of it. So I did a Jimmy Church radio show that had some of it in there too, and then we're going to write it up in the coming week or two, hopefully, because there's been a lot of crazy distractions going on. But suffice it to say, if you already have seen Endgame 2, you've heard a lot of this, but let's just review for people, what is the deal with these ruins in Antarctica? Is this part of the partial disclosure timeline? And if so, what are we going to hear about?
Yes, groups have been documenting in video and with they've had professors from well-known universities going down for 14 years now to create documentaries that are going to be shown to us once they make this discovery. But they sanitized all of the archaeological scenes, removed any of the bodies of the pre-Adamites, and only left the humans there to make it look like it was a completely human civilization. And that's what they're first going to spring on us. And then after that occurs, eventually they're going to tell us, oh yeah, we have a secret space program. And that secret space program has been flying around finding very similar ruins. Therefore, there are aliens, ancient aliens. But why are they doing this? They see themselves as, they see this as their lineage. They see themselves as royal and entitled. They want us to do the same. They want us to see these non-humans go into some sort of a state to where we begin to worship them, and they want us to worship them as living gods.
How do you think that's going to go down?
It's not going to happen. It's already impossible.
Okay, now, dude, a lot of people have said, oh my God, Corey has become a cheerleader for partial disclosure. Let's just clear that up right now. Is this what you want to see? Is this what we've agreed is going to happen, or are we still working for something else?
Well, be careful what you wish for, but I'm wishing for full disclosure along with the secret space program.
Absolutely.
But we're in the minority. The Earth Alliance, all the negotiations that have occurred, they've already agreed they're pushing forward with this partial disclosure narrative. It's up to us to trip it up in any way we can.
But I just want to point out for everybody here that if you think about the effect of Pizzagate prosecutions, and Antarctica is Atlantis, and there's ancient ruins down there, I mean, what a paradigm shift even that alone is going to be. And you got to think about fractals and how once the truth gets dropped on people like this, I believe the outcome is completely unpredictable. This is freaking live streamed on the internet right now. It cannot be taken away. And if this little bit of truth is correct and you're watching this after this has become public, we said this before it was public, okay? Why would we be wrong about the other stuff? So what we're doing right now, Corey, is part of that full disclosure plan, correct?
Yeah, we're gumming up the works. We're putting out information that they don't want out, and they're not happy. They're not happy.
They're not happy about this.
This pre-Adamite group has gone through great pains to remain in the background, and they do not want to be outed to the public right now.
So there are humans with elongated skulls that still live in the Vatican, hence they wear
hybrids,
these elongated
yes.
hats to hide their skull. And we've had folks like various whistleblowers have come forward talking about this, and the skulls have been found all over the earth. Okay, one last thing. As we said before, I'm going to say it again. Gaia is hiring. It's my job to tell you this. So, as I told you before, we have lots of different positions that are available in the company. Almost anything you can imagine. It's going to be here all weekend. You can have a high-level meeting. Well, don't go walking away and spoil my standing ovation. Get on up on your feet. This is it. We're done. Thank you so much. Full disclosure now. That's what we want. Conscious Life Expo. This is it. All right, so tomorrow night, 8 p.m., I got a lot of things. I have the 9 a.m. I got a panel with Jimmy Church. 2 p.m. I got a panel with George Norrie. 8 p.m. Antarctic Atlantis. Don't miss it. We'll see you. I have to get up crazy early tomorrow, so I'm really sorry I can't stick around for like an hour meeting everybody. So I'm going to have to jet, but thank you everybody so much for coming. Let's hear it for Corey. He's going to stick around and meet everybody. So he says.